Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Noizati Rosli. So I proceed with chapter 1. Introduction. In early March 2020, the pandemic has broken down in Malaysia. The whole country has been locked down for a month as a prevention of a spread viruses. However, it has been slowed down the economic growth of Malaysia, especially to SME company that was critically suffer from that. In Malaysia, SME represented closed enterprises constitute the largest number of enterprises in the economy. Highlight term. First one, environmental sustainability and governance (ESG) in the post-COVID-19. Malaysia has a plan to create a long-term changes in environmental and social standard. The plan was supported by the government in 2021 budget, which emphasized on sustainability and was aligned with the SDG Sustainability Development Goals of a Malaysia government. Second one, the link to sustainable goals. The UN Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) aim to address issues such as poverty, health, education, and climate change by 2030. Governments and businesses can use the SDGs as the framework to make progress on Malaysia's global concerns. The 70 Sustainability Development Goals were introduced in 2015. Problem statement. During the pandemic of COVID-19 in Malaysia, most of the entrepreneurs are struggling to sustain in the business, especially for the SMEs company. In its World Economic Outlook (WEO) update on January 2021, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) estimated a 3.5% negative increase in the global economy in 2020. The updated amount was 0.9% higher than was projected by WEO in October 2020. In specifically businesses, the operational burden of the COVID-19 pandemic is struggling for SME. Research objective. Firstly, to examine the environmental factor of exist among SMEs during COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. Secondly, to determine the environmental, social and governance sustainability practices among SMEs during post-COVID-19 in Malaysia. Thirdly, to examine the relationship between the environmental factor and environmental, social and governance sustainability practices among SME during post-COVID-19 in Malaysia. Research objective. Firstly, what the nature of environmental factor that exists among SMEs during COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. Secondly, what the nature of the environmental, social, governance, sustainability practices among SMEs during post-COVID-19 in Malaysia. Thirdly, is there any relationship between the environmental factors and the environmental, social, governance, sustainability practices among SMEs during post-COVID-19 in Malaysia? Hypothesis. Hypothesis 1. There is a positive and a significant relationship between the environmental factor and the environmental, social, governance, sustainability practices among SMEs during post-COVID-19 in Malaysia. Limitation of study. A major limitation of many studies as well as this study is that they rely on the cross-sectional results that are seldom replicated. As such, the result of a study cannot confirm the direction of causality implied in this research model. Significance of study. SMEs in Malaysia are taking part in the COVID-19. The survey brings the nature of ideas among organizations that are about the environmental factor and environmental, social, governance, sustainability practices among SMEs during COVID-19 Annual Conference on Sustainability.
Okay, now we will proceed to Chapter 2, Literature Review. Introduction. This study describes the relationship between the nature of environmental factors, social and governance among SMEs in Malaysia during post-COVID-19. This chapter reviews literature on three main issues in elaborating those relationships. 1. The definition of the nature of environmental factors on post-COVID-19 on SMEs. 2. The definition of the nature of environmental, social, and governance among SMEs in Malaysia. 3. The relationship between the nature of environmental factors, social, and governance among SMEs in Malaysia during post-COVID-19. The nature of environmental factors on post-COVID-19 on SMEs. During the worldwide pandemic, businesses were confronted with a variety of problems, and how they responded has influenced their resilience as well as their chances of surviving the catastrophe. In order to adapt to this changing climate, SMEs are modifying their business strategies. The service sector has been particularly heavily damaged. Businesses of all sizes and industries were affected by the worldwide health crisis that began in 2020. Although certain industries have demonstrated resiliencies or even discovered new operating niches, most SMEs entrepreneurs have found themselves in new normal operating settings. The pandemic's harmful effects have been recorded in many aspects of life, with economic, political, social, and psychological ramifications. The greatest influence, however, has been on human health and perceptions of human health. To curb the epidemic, numerous nations have halted economic operations and implemented social distance to prevent COVID-19 transfer from one person to another person. Lockdowns, reduced consumptions, community closures, and the closure of enterprises have all resulted as a result of this. The nature of environmental factors on post-COVID-19 on SMEs. During the worldwide pandemic, businesses were confronted with a variety of problems, and how they responded has influenced their resilience as well as their chances of surviving the catastrophe. In order to adapt to this changing climate, SMEs are modifying their business strategies. The service sector has been particularly heavily damaged. Businesses of all sizes and industries were affected by the worldwide health crisis that began in 2020. Although certain industries have demonstrated resiliencies or even discovered new operating niches, most SMEs entrepreneurs have found themselves in new normal operating settings. The pandemic's harmful effects have been recorded in many aspects of life, with economic, political, social, and psychological ramifications. The greatest influence, however, has been on human health and perceptions of human health. To curb the epidemic, numerous nations have halted economic operations and implemented social distance to prevent COVID-19 transfer from one person to another person. Lockdowns, reduced consumptions, community closures, and the closure of enterprises have all resulted as a result of this. Here is the type of SMEs. SMEs are companies with sales, assets, or personnel that fall below a particular threshold. SME is defined differently in each nation. Certain size requirements must be satisfied, and the industry in which the firm works may also be considered. SMEs are non-subsidiary, independent firms which employ fewer than a given number of employees. Bank Negara Malaysia has revised the definition of SME through a notification issued on 27 December 2017 that has been simplified under two categories, namely, first, manufacturing, and the second one is service and other sectors. For manufacturing, the sales turnover of not more than 50 million ringgit Malaysia or full-time employees not exceeding 200 workers, while for service and other sectors, the sales turnover not exceeding 20 million ringgit Malaysia or full-time employees not exceeding 75 workers. The nature of environmental, social, and governance among SMEs in Malaysia. Environmental, social, and governance criteria are a set of operational requirements used by socially concerned investors to analyze possible investments. Environmental criteria look at how a corporation behaves as a steward of the environment. Social criteria look at how it deals with workers, suppliers, consumers, and the communities in which business works. Because of their impact on the risk-return profile of a portfolio, environmental, social, and governance issues have become major considerations for investors. When addressing socially responsible investing, the phrase sustainability or the abbreviation ESG is frequently used. Conceptual framework. The conceptual framework has three main components: independent variable, moderating variable, and dependent variable. For this study, the independent variable is the nature of environmental factors on post-COVID-19 on SMEs in Malaysia. 1. Digital marketing. 2. E-commerce platform. 3. Electronic points of sale. And 4. Contactless payment system. The moderating variable for this study is types of services SMEs. And the dependent variable for the studies is the nature of environmental, social, and governance among SMEs in Malaysia. 1. Investor expectation. 2. Sustainability reporting. 3. Regulation. 4. Fiscal politics. And the last one is customers' behavior. Chapter 3. Methodology. 1. Research design. The researcher used qualitative method. 2. Methodology. The 10 services SME companies that registered under the SME Corp Malaysia. 3. Sampling frame. The service sector of SMEs listed in the Dictionary of SME Corp Malaysia. 4. Sample. The representative of services SMEs organizations selected at random that extracted from the list of SME Corp Malaysia. Conclusions. Unit of study. The study is focused on SMEs organization that specifically on service sector SMEs in Malaysia. Instrument. The questionnaire is the most common method used by many researchers. The reference for our instrument can be obtained from SMEs Corp official website.
Validity and reliability instrument. Validity means measure what is intended to be measured. Reliability concerns the extent to which a measurement of a phenomenon provides a stable and consistent result. The stability and consistency with which the instrument measures the concept is also important for reliability. It is said to be reliable if a repeat measurement made by it under constant condition will give the same result. Plan data analysis. Research objective. Firstly, to examine the environmental factor that exists among SMEs during COVID-19 pandemic. Measurement. Statement that related the environmental factors that exist among SMEs during COVID-19 pandemic. Scale, interval. Statistic, descriptive statistics. Secondly, to determine the environmental, social, and governance sustainability practices among SMEs during COVID-19. Variable. Independent variables evaluate in the term of its predictive power and to seek how much variance in dependent variable they are able to explain. Measurement. Statement related to environmental, social, and governance sustainability practices among SMEs during COVID-19 in Malaysia. Scale, interval. Statistic, descriptive statistic. Thirdly, to examine the relationship between the environmental factor and environmental, social, and governance sustainability practices among SMEs during COVID-19. Variable, associate, independent variable, evaluate in the terms of its predictive power. Measurement, measure the associate of the environmental factors and the environmental, social, and governance stability. Scale, interval. Statistic, descriptive statistic.